Before I do that, just to say the following, that Mr. Ngumalo and the team, Mr. Marukani, the ESCOM team, have done exceptionally well. So over the past week, what have we seen as a trend? And it appears to be sustained now. So over the past 7 days, ESCOM has averaged 70% of EAF. So remember, the viewers at home, when I say EAF, I'm talking about two areas really, consideration: the rate at which these units are failing, and also the degree to which they approximate their design capacity. And thank you very much, Mr. Ngumalo. Let me put this into context. And the same period last year, when I stood before you explaining the strategy that led by the board, Dr. Mteto, and the men and women that constitute the board, at the time, Mr. Kelly as the acting CEO, and most importantly, a strategy that was generated and, of course, approved by the board from Mr. Ngumalo, was that we're going through a period of load shedding, and I had said to the country, short-term pain, long-term gain. Allow us an opportunity to invest in the maintenance of this asset. I think the same period last year, Mr. Ngumalo, we're sitting at about the EAF of 55%. And if you look at where we are, it's a 15 percentage point increase from where we are the similar period of last year. I mean, this is phenomenal. We never expected Mr. Ngumalo and the team to get us to this level this quick, but the team has been transfixed on the resolution of this problem. Thank you very much. We are not out of the woods yet. I want to emphasize, we will be the first people to say to you in absolute terms that this situation has been resolved, but the team is doing exceptionally well. And of course, on the 23rd of July was a day to celebrate. To celebrate because for the first time, I think since 2018, we had the availability of 35,000 megawatts plus. And this, the last time we had seen these numbers was on about 6 years ago, the 16th of July, 2018. This is phenomenal. And it's a confirmation that this strategy as adopted by the board is working, and we are going to stay at it and ensure that we are able to continue to deliver the kind of performance that is required. And then there are stations that have shown stellar performance. I did make the point that part of the work that Mr. Ngumalo and the team are doing is to do an examination station by station, generating unit by generating unit. That's how meticulous Mr. Ngumalo and his team of power station managers and the men and women at ESCOM are doing. Now we've seen that we've got about 6 power stations whose EAF is above 70%. Kusile and Midupi, you expect them to be in that category because they are some of our newest power stations. But I think what is encouraging us is that consistently Matla and Matimba are there in that category. And I want to say to you that there's an intra-station competition, which is very healthy for purposes of driving this EAF. So the station managers themselves, very exemplary in how amongst themselves they share experiences, because your Matla, your Matimba station managers will exchange notes, if you like, with other station managers on how best to achieve this kind of performance, of course, led by Mr. Ngumalo. So thank you very much, Peggy, for the excellent work that you are doing, my brother. It can't be overemphasized, and thank you very much. And then there's an additional 4 power stations whose EAF is above 60%. Of course, Letabo is in there. They'll be very upset with me if I don't mention them. I want to speak up Grootvlei for special mention. It's one of the oldest power stations, I think close to 50 years or so. So what the Grootvlei shows to us is that there's no relationship between age and performance. So you can be old and still perform. I'm talking the power station, so there's no relation. Don't get too excited there. Yes, you will need other assistants to perform at this level, but these stations are doing very well. So what's the message I'm conveying? Is that we are beginning to undermine that argument that the older you are, you simply can't perform. I'm talking about the station, and we're seeing the kind of performance that we're seeing. I make the point that when I went to Ndrina, when I was appointed, I think there were only 2 lights on. Those who understand power station, the light simply means when the light is on, it simply means that that unit is performing. When I went to Ndrina this time around, they had about 5 lights on. the work that the team is doing, the phenomenal work led by Mr. Nxumalo. And then there's also the UCLF, important. When the ESCOM released its winter outlook, Mr. Nxumalo and the team said the following to the country. They say, on the back of the performance that we are experiencing, and remember that they released this around April of this year, March, April of this year. Mr. Nxumalo and the team and say, on account of what has been the performance, because remember they track historic performance, they are not necessarily talking about what the projections are going into the future. So they take a conservative approach. They generated 3 scenarios. I want to isolate their most optimistic scenario. Mr. Nxumalo and the team said to the country, Mr. Marokani and the board, that on the optimistic scenario, we are foreseeing that if we were to have the amount of units failing, the aggregate megawatts of failure being 14,000 megawatts, we are not going to see load shedding in winter. So that's what our best case scenario. Look at what they've done. What they've done is that we are experiencing now, past 7 days, we are at 9,000, below 10,000. So we are 4,000 better, at least on account of the past 7 days. 4,000 better than even our most optimistic case. And that's why that 123, 24 days of no load shedding, 87, 89 of those days is during winter. That's phenomenal. So I think it's important that you have that appreciation, because that's when you have a peak demand. Even during the coldest period across the country, not necessarily isolated to the Western Cape, we did not see the levels of load shedding. Let me put this number into perspective. This 9,800, that's the total losses at any given time. When I stood before you, same period last year, the total losses were sitting at 16,400 megawatts. So what the team has done, they found an additional 7,000 megawatts. So by any measure, that's phenomenal. And that's why I'm saying that the work that Mr. Nxumalo, of course, led by Dr. Mteto and Mr. Marokane have done, it's phenomenal. It's beyond our own expectations. So what we are expecting of them is to sustain that. And sustaining it is to remain within that band that they've established since the start of the financial year. They are hovering, oscillating between 9,800 and 12,400 megawatts. They must remain within that band. And I'm confident that Mr. Nxumalo and the team would want to do to be closer to the lower figure of 9,800, because we know now that it can be achieved. That stemming from 2018, we're going back to those levels. And I know that quietly where he's seated is to ensure that we even better that mark. So we'll keep on, if you are moving the mark, illustrating that the combination of the leadership that is there and the expertise can help us to resolve this question. Just in number terms, the 70% average is over the past 7 days. But I think the more telling number is the EAF year to date, because that is over a period of time, about 62%, 7 percentage point increase from the 55% that we had experienced the last year. So that's a very, very significant. And we also show you can see that the trend line is going up in relation to the performance of the weekly performance of in relation to the EAF. When the week 10 started, week 10 starting from the 1st of April, because the financial year, so you do that those weeks. Week 10, since the 1st of April, we're at 63% the EAF, and now slowly we're going up to, now we're sitting at 71%. But you can see that consistently, we're about 68, 66%, and that's the benchmark, the new benchmark. The team will continue to make that improvement. And of course, the total unplanned capacity loss factor. So there's a relationship between the EAF. The higher the EAF, it means that the lower the levels of losses. And I just shared with you that we have reached a low of about 9,800 megawatts, last achieved about 2018. So that's the progress that we are making. And another number that is significant to all of us, because this is going to be more important much later, when ESCOM makes applications in relation to tariff increases, NERSA will ask the question, what is the cost of generation? And if you are mixed, you are relying heavily on open cycle gas turbine. You are burning diesel to keep the lights on. it means that it's going to have implications on the underlying cost structure, because you must account for that for us to be able to keep the lights on. And I want to say to the country that you can see that with 123 days of no load shedding, and of course very little usage of diesel, I think we are 9 billion rands lower than where we are from an expenditure point of view compared to the same levels last year. I think we're at about 12 billion around this time last year. Now we're at 3 billion rand. And thanks to the work that Mr. Nxumalo and the team are doing. What's the point I'm making is that we need to bring down that cost structure of generation. Because like I said, over a period of time, it's got implications on the tariff structure. Because it's a structural issue, if you like, from a pricing point of view. And the teams are beginning to negate, if you like, our over-reliance on diesel. From gigawatt hour terms, the lower we produce electricity from diesel, the lower the gigawatts coming out of that source. And you can see that, week 13 last year, we had generated 58 gigawatts of electricity from open cycle gas turbine. Now, week 13, the comparative period, only 9 gigawatts. And then now, as I speak to you, almost nothing coming out of the OCGTs. Thank you very much, Mr. Nxumalo. I can't overemphasize the work that you are doing. I know, extremely soft-spoken. You always tell me, don't congratulate a fish for swimming. This fish is not suffocating, so we really need the fish to continue to swim for us to be able to have a hearty meal. So thank you very much, Mr. Nxumalo, and by extension, the men and women of ESCOM.